We are going to witness the most anticipated match for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
When it comes to what you eat, do you wonder exactly what it is that I'm indulging in? What the ingredients consist of some of my favorite snacks, meals, sodas, or candies? Do you think the foods you eat can cause illnesses within the body, such as ADHD, cancers, diabetes, and other illnesses? Can certain foods cause massive weight gain and control your brain? Or does it not matter at all what you eat? Today, we will dive into clips, interviews, and thoughts on these questions at hand and see on Montes, believe it or not.
If I was actually smart, I would have listened to the people that told me how to do things right a long time ago, but I was hard-headed and thought I knew everything, like most people I talk to nowadays when I try to give them advice about eating right.
I've never had McDonald's before in my whole life, and I can't have this. I told myself I couldn't. I have like a very specific goal that I have to reach before I have McDonald's.
Taught me very early on not to eat to please the tongue, but eat to nourish the body.
And vegetables, kale salad. Yum, kale salad with jalapenos and croutons.
So I'm a huge snacker, and I don't want that to mean a bad thing. It's a good thing. But we've turned it into a good habit. We try to have some mixed nuts, some granola, some dried fruits, some freshly chopped vegetables. I know that my kids are watching me, and they're probably gonna eat some of the same things that I eat. So we try to put those things out in the open so everybody can see them, and we can just snack on them during the day. You would be surprised how much your fruit and vegetable intake would increase if you keep it out in the open.
Eating healthy is a big part of me staying in shape. I'm always trying to have a healthy amount of vegetables, and when I say healthy, I just mean a lot. My girlfriend's a vegetarian, which is really helpful because it means that more often than not, I'll be having a veggie meal.
But at least let me know what I'm putting inside of my body.
Something is poisoning the American people, and we know that the primary culprits are changing food supply, the switch to highly chemical intensive processed foods. We have 10,000 ingredients in our country, in our foods. The Europeans have only 400. If you buy McDonald's French fries in our country, there's 11 ingredients, my understanding. In Europe, there's only 3.
These chemicals were created to mimic real food, to make it easier and cheaper for food manufacturers to preserve their food, to make it last longer on the shelf, to help manufacturing, and sinister of all, to allow them to create products that are more addictive in nature. We use over 10,000 food additives here in the United States, and in Europe, there's only 400 approved. American food companies are selling the same exact products overseas without these chemicals, but choose to continue serving us the most toxic version here. Let me give you some examples. French fries. In the US, there's 11 ingredients. In the UK, there's 3, and salt is optional. An ingredient called dimethylpolysiloxane is an ingredient preserved with formaldehyde, a neurotoxin, in the US version. This is used as a foaming agent so they don't have to replace the oil that often.
It is a tragedy that McDonald's no longer cooks their fries in tallow. These fries have 19 ingredients. 19 ingredients in these fries. They are cooked in 4 different types of seed oils: corn, soybean, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, which is going to have a lot of trans fats, and canola oil. What else is in here? Dimethylpolysiloxane. It's a huge word. It's an anti-foaming agent used in the oils and the fryers. It's a silicone derivative that is also found in silly putty. So there are silly putty ingredients in your French fries, but we're not done yet. They also contain THBQ, a chemical preservative, which is associated with cancers in lab animals and is a reason that many foods cannot be sold at healthy grocery stores like Whole Foods. In fact, Whole Foods will not sell Reese's peanut butter cups or Reese's Pieces because they contain THBQ, but they're fine in the McDonald's French fries.
On the screen back here is Gatorade. In the US, they use Red 40 and caramel color. In Germany, they don't. They use carrot and sweet potatoes to color their Gatorade.
Every year, 15 million pounds of artificial food dye is put into food. And a lot of those foods are marketed towards kids, especially something like this little fruit snack, or quotes, fruit snack. has a lot of these dyes in it. And, these dyes are they're linked to behavior problems in kids, ADHD, even autism. And, I used to think food dye, that's just food dye. It's not good, it's not bad, but I've really seen a big link with diseases in my kids, my patients, allergies, other inflammatory diseases, behavior problems. It's a big problem.
Skittles. Notice the long list of ingredient differences. 10 artificial dyes in the US version and titanium dioxide. This ingredient is banned in Europe because it can cause DNA damage. Artificial dyes are made from petroleum, and products containing these dyes require a warning label in Europe that states it may cause adverse effects on activity and attention in children. And they have been linked to cancer and disruptions in the immune system. General Mills is definitely playing some tricks on us. They launched a new version of Trix just recently in Australia. It has no dyes. They even advertise that, when the US version still does.
Because I want you to see it for yourself. You see that? I'm gonna put in one finger. Trisodium phosphate.
Check this out.
I'm gonna go to Home Depot now. And we're gonna see what that crap. Here we are. This is it, guys.
All-purpose heavy-duty
They
cleaner
even have the phosphate-free version
in our
because it must be
cereal.
so toxic.
This is why I became a food activist. My name is Vani Hari, and I only want one thing. I want Americans to be treated the same way as citizens in other countries by our own American companies.
Cereal companies like Kellogg's use ingredients in their cereals in the United States that they can't use and won't use in other countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. Why should you care? Let's talk about it. These are the ingredients for the American Fruit Loops, which include artificial dyes like Red 40 and preservatives like BHT. Fruit Loops in countries like the UK, instead of being artificially dyed, color their cereal with plant extracts like nettle and spinach and carrots and black currants and paprika instead of artificial dyes. It's also important to note that the American Fruit Loops, this little guy, contains genetically modified grains like GMO corn, which can be higher in the herbicide glyphosate, which is not found in international cereal. Why should you care? There are many studies to show that artificial dyes, preservatives, and herbicide are associated with inflammatory problems, disrupting the gut microbiome, triggering autoimmune problems, behavioral problems in children, neuroinflammation, which is why they are outlawed in other countries. There's another study showing that red dye 40 causes DNA damage, impacting the gut microbiome and triggering colitis or inflammatory bowel issues in mice. This is the difference between the international and the American fruit.
Our current agriculture system origin story involves large chemical companies, not farmers, chemists. 85% of the food that you are consuming started from a patented seed sold by a chemical corporation that was responsible for creating Agent Orange in the Vietnam War. In 1974, the U.S. started spraying our crops with an herbicide called glyphosate, and in the early 1990s, we began to see the release of genetically modified foods into our food supply. It all seems to begin with a chemical company by the name IG Farben, the later parent company of Bayer. Farben provided the chemicals used in Nazi nerve agents and gas chambers. When the wars ended, these companies needed a market for their chemicals. If that is not alarming enough, glyphosate is produced by and distributed from China. Americans deserve a straight answer. Why does an agrochemical company own where our food comes from? 280 million pounds of glyphosate are sprayed on American crops annually.
Apparently, this ice cream is so fake that they can't even call it ice cream. It's called a frozen dessert
An ice cream cone made of modified milk ingredients, gums, and emulsifiers.
Pickles are just pickles, right? Nope. Pickles at McDonald's have 10 ingredients. 10 ingredients in pickles. Some of the ingredients are aluminum salts, polysorbate 80, and potassium sorbate. None of those are good for humans, and excess amounts of aluminum in our diets have been associated with increased rates of dementia like Alzheimer's. It's horrible. These pickles are in a mix of some kind of secret sauce. Secret sauce is full of all the bad things. It's like the worst things in the McDonald's universe combined. High fructose corn syrup, you got soybean oil, which is a seed oil, you've got caramel color, and you've got propylene glycol. Like I said, the secret sauce is like the horrible love child of all the other bad things at McDonald's. Now, we're gonna go through this bun right here. You've got another beef patty, and stuck to that beef patty, you've got a piece of American quote cheese. So American cheese is pretty crazy, guys. Not even real cheese, cannot even be called real cheese. It's a cheese product. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that American cheese is full of microplastics. You can look at that American cheese under a microscope, and there are tons of little microplastics in that American cheese. It's a cheese product. So you've got buns that are full of seed oils and sugar. You've got pickles with 10 ingredients. You've got seed oil, high fructose corn syrup, caramel color, polysorbate 80 lined secret sauce. I mean, you've got a Big Mac that'll stay on the shelf of your house as a museum piece for the next 6 years, but if you put it in your body, it's definitely going to contribute to weight gain, metabolic dysfunction, and nothing good comes from this, guys. Not a huge fan of chicken nuggets, but I think that a lot of kids out there have eaten a lot of these oils, and that is contributing to childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, behavioral problems. There's nothing good about chicken nuggets at McDonald's. These are chicken meat with bleached wheat flour added. The problem with bleached wheat flour is some of the chemicals they use to bleach the wheat flour can be harmful for humans, like chlorine dioxide. There's obviously a breading, which is a wheat-based breading, and that is cooked in 4 different types of seed oils: corn, canola, soybean, and hydrogenated soybean oil to make these chicken nuggets. Hydrogenated soybean oil, that's like a trans fat. You know that's going to be a problematic thing because of how it's processed, extra heated. But the fact that there are 4 seed oils in chicken nuggets means that you're going to be getting tons of this fat, linoleic acid, which I'm not a fan of. Why do I not like linoleic acid? High level, not to get too technical, linoleic acid accumulates in your body. It accumulates in all the cell membranes, your mitochondrial membranes. It messes up the way you make energy in your mitochondria by causing proton leak across the inner mitochondrial membrane. The seed oils also can break down into harmful compounds called the HODs and the heats. These are called oxalams or oxylipins. Seed oils are something that humans never would have been exposed to before. 100 years ago. They were used as machine lubricants, and now they're a huge part of our food supply. They're in basically everything on this table. And in contrast, animal fats like tallow and butter were all we ate for thousands and thousands of years of humans. Is it any wonder that before the early 1900s, things like cancer and autoimmune disease were much more rare? Cardiovascular disease, heart attacks were almost unheard of. And since then, these have increased massively. Obviously, there are many things that have caused these health conditions to skyrocket in the last 100 to 115 years, but I think seed oils are a major contributor to this.
One of Starbucks' latest ventures in caffeinated beverages, the Oleato line, first launched in Milan before making its way to the US in March 2023. This was coffee with a twist, the addition of Partana extra virgin olive oil.
It's like an oil spill on your iced coffee. You can just see the ooey gooey olive oil like on the sides of the drink.
When they say infused with olive oil, they actually just mean that there will be a layer of olive oil sitting on top of your drink.
The folks that make our nutrition guidelines are directly paid for by food companies, and we've gotten people addicted. Sugar and fat, these are science experiments. It's literally engineered to hijack our brain to not satiate us, to make us want more. There's a 3-step playbook working for the food companies. They hired all the scientists in the 1980s from the tobacco companies. The tobacco companies, as smoking went down, actually started buying Nabisco and Kraft and shifting their scientists over. The key thing that the food companies know is that ultra-processed food, which is now up to 70% of our diet, is a science experiment. They're hijacking our evolutionary biology, and they're making the food addictive.
26-year-old Daniel drenches all his food in maple syrup.
I got my syrup going. I put maple syrup on everything that I eat. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Pizza, lasagna, Mexican food, Chinese food, whatever kind of food I'm gonna put it on.
20-year-old Amy has a hardcore addiction to cola.
I drink more cola than everybody I know.
Downing 30 colas a day. That's over 10,000 cans every year.
Me and cola are best friends.
Her family believes it's destroying her health. Kimberly is fixated on ice cream bars, devouring up to 40 every day.
I get obsessed over the ice cream bars.
Victor's life is dominated by cheeseburgers.
Burgers are so good.
Eating them morning, noon, and night. Every meal of every day for almost 3 decades.
Victor is in the midst of a major health crisis.
Now his health is in dire straits.
Foods that I eat and the pills that I'm taking are just fighting each other, and unfortunately the cheeseburgers won.
And the researchers affirmed that poor diet is the #1 risk to human health. By far, about 11 million people die each year due to poor diet. And we're living during this strange paradox where more people are dying from the overconsumption of fake food than from not enough.
80% of medical schools in the United States don't require a single nutrition course, not 1 minute of nutrition. And yet 90% of our healthcare costs are tied to diseases. The things that are torturing American lives are tied to food. And doctors, it's not a hammer in our toolbox. I didn't learn at Stanford Medical School that 95% of the people on the USDA Food Guidelines for America Committee had a conflict of interest with the food industry. I didn't learn that there were 8,000 conflicts of interest at the NIH. I didn't learn that there are 8 billion tons of plastic on planet Earth that are degrading into estrogen, analogs. I did not learn that there's 6 billion pounds of pesticides sprayed on our global food supply every single year, most from China and Germany, and that these are literally tied very strongly to Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, obesity, mitochondrial dysfunction, infertility, ADHD, liver dysfunction.
I could drink a 2 liter a day.
So 2 liters a day of Mountain Dew is how many calories? Do you know?
No idea. I never had to think about it.
And the family in West Virginia, where there are 11 brothers and sisters and everyone has diabetes, and they know the smart way to eat, they just don't seem willing to stick to it.
A study out of Australia found those who consume 16 ounces of soda per day were 60% more likely of having depression, stress-related problems, and even suicidal thoughts. And just by consuming 1 to 2 cans a day can increase your risk for diabetes by 26%.
When you do a brain scan of a person eating ultra-processed food, it fits all the criteria for addiction, and we've gotten people addicted.
All right. Humans have been processing food forever, but there's a difference between processing a food and what we have today is this new phenomenon of ultra-processed foods. And so processing food is cooking a food, whether it's a steak, whether it's baking a sweet potato, that's a process. Pushing the olives and getting oil out, coconut oil, those are all processing to get those minimally processed foods. Ultra processed foods, on the other hand, that's when you see a field of wheat and it becomes somehow, some way, a box of Pop-Tarts or a bowl of Lucky Charms or a field of corn, and somehow it becomes Smack cereal. Shout out to that little frog growing up.
Apples belong to Group 1. These are your whole foods with nothing added. This level includes all fresh, dry, and frozen fruits and vegetables, grains, meat, eggs, milk, fish, nuts, and seeds. Group 2 refers to processed culinary ingredients such as salt, sugar, butter, honey, olive oil, or spices. Now, Group 3 refers to processed foods. The term processing just means that a food has undergone a change from its natural state. This level includes canned food, cured meats, wine, cheese, fresh bread. To use our apple example, applesauce, canned apples, or prepackaged apples preserved with lemon juice. So in Group 3, we usually have a food product that's made up of almost all just real food. It can be baked or boiled or preserved or canned or fermented or mixed with other foods. So it's important to note that processing itself is not bad. It's when you take things too far. In Group 4, ultra-processed food is the definition of too far. So here is the definition given for Group 4. Ultra-processed foods are formulations of ingredients, mostly of exclusive industrial use, typically created by a series of industrial techniques and processes.
And those foods are now so denatured that they're really not even considered real food. And right now we have data affirming that our cells don't really interact with these compounds like real food. And so just to throw one of these pieces of data out here to get started, a study that was published in the BMJ recently, this is one of our top tier medical journals, found that 60% of the average American's diet today, average American adult's diet, is now made of ultra processed fake food. And to get that field of corn into your bowl as a bowl of Pops or a bowl of Lucky Charms, it's not just the corn, obviously. There's a lot of synthetic ingredients. There's a lot of additives, preservatives, artificial flavors and colors, and all of these things that at this point we know they're altering our biology. Our cells are having a hard time processing these things. And what I want people to know starting off today is that what we're doing when we're bringing these foods into our body, we're making our tissues out of these things.
This man suffers from a disease that affects 93 million people in the nation, obesity. At just 34 years old, Casey King now weighs 485 pounds. According to him, he is a victim of fast food.
What you want to eat?
Everything.
What's everything?
I don't know.
Eggs, bacon, grits, all that?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Okay. Food is like my best friend. Thank you. Can I have some juice, Miss V? When I eat, It takes the stress away. That's what I do to help me cope with things.
I need a roller cart.
Right.
We gonna have to get one.
I know that the food is unhealthy and it's not good for me.
Obesity is expected to cost the NHS £50 billion a year by 2050.
The more you eat, the greedier you get.
And the researchers affirmed that poor diet is the #1 risk to human health. By far, about 11 million people die each year due to poor diet. And we're living during this strange paradox where more people are dying from the overconsumption of fake food than from not enough food.
The biggest drug addiction crisis and drug issue in the country by far is the ultra-processed food industry. And you're hitting on the second aspect of this devil's bargain. Food and ultra-processed food is causing absolute devastation in America. 9 of the 10 leading causes of death are foodborne illnesses. If you take down ultra-processed food, you are eliminating diabetes, you're eliminating heart disease, you're putting a stab to the heart of cancer, many forms of cancer are metabolically related. Even Alzheimer's is now called type 3 diabetes. It's so closely related to our diet.
What's in the food we eat? There is the single ingredient theory, that it's fructose.
Fructose is the cause of the current epidemic.
Robert Lustig at the University of California in San Francisco argues that the introduction in the 1970s of a low-cost sweetener called high fructose corn syrup lowered the cost of fructose in general so that now it's showing up everywhere. But Lustig says the level of obesity in America began to climb around the very time that the food industry started using lots of high fructose corn syrup, because he says it's just so cheap and so readily available and therefore so everywhere. Okay, so if it's not just one ingredient that's the problem, maybe it's that there are all kinds of ingredients that just don't belong in the food we eat. That's what Michael Pollan thinks, as he demonstrated for me, in quantities you don't really expect.
Everyone seems to think yogurt is good for you, and yogurt is healthy. But this has 27 grams of sugar for this yogurt. So is it worth it?
This has 27 grams of sugar, too, per serving.
It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous.
The worst part being he thinks that fructose messes with our brains, making us ever more hungry.
So your brain thinks you're hungry, because if your brain can't get the leptin signal, that's starvation.
Feels like starvation.
Feels like starvation.
It's sad, but I think I can say this honestly, probably 95% of America has no idea how to eat. Who taught them? Grandma? No, it's the television that's teaching.
Certain foods are essential. We must have them daily for the sake of health. Meat, cheese, fish, poultry, vegetables, green and yellow, fruits, 2 or more servings daily, at least 1 raw, citrus fruit or tomato often, and eggs, 3 to 5 a week, but 1 a day preferred. Cereal and bread, rich golden butter, and milk. At least 1 quart of milk a day.
You just can't beat a post-game burger at McDonald's, right? And you can't beat the Angel Reese special.
Wow, thanks, Justin Jefferson.
You know, we love eating Little Caesars and watching the Vikings play.
And one day, I'm gonna be just like you.
I love going all natural. It just makes me feel better. Nothing between me and my 100% all natural, juicy, grass-fed beef.
Introducing the all-natural burger.
Milk.
Ladies, gotta go to work.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22.
Jason and Travis teaming up with General Mills to combine their 3 favorite breakfast cereals all in one bowl. The salad mix, the Kelsey mix, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Lucky Charms, and Reese's Puffs. Wow.
Hey, you drink Sprite.
Playoff time, baby. Games, snacks, drinks. I mean, what else can you ask for, bro? Really?
Hey, pass me a Pepsi.
I put a Pepsi in the motion, but that choice is up to you. Hey, you're the Pepsi generation.
Nah, Chuck's always been a little twisted.
Asia? Jason?
Everybody knows you love cheese, old man. So hit 6. Let's do this.
I do like cheese.
13 more hours to go. M&M's. Can't resist them.
I still think that we have to look at the engineering of food and how it's taking over our taste buds and our brains and made to be addictive. And and figuring out how the food companies can still make their food delicious and tasty, but not addictive, right? We've got to unlock that somehow.